One more. Okay. Amitabha. It's good to see you all and those who will be checking in just a few minutes. So I'm saying hi to you, even though you haven't checked in yet. But in any case, tonight's lecture was one in which was inspired by one of my students that contacted me. But before we do that, join palms, we will bow and do the four great vows. Bow. Four great vows. I vow to deliver innumerable sentient beings. I vow to cut off endless vexations. I vow to master limitless approaches to Dharma. I vow to attain supreme Buddhahood. Okay. Welcome again. This morning I was contacted by one of my students whose sister had passed away, and she had been doing recitation for her before she passed and afterwards. And this particular student has progressed very, very quickly in the practice of Dharma. And she truly understood the meaning of doing chanting of the Buddha's name and transferring merit. This is something that is an interesting aspect of our practice, because the practice of the chan and the practice of recitation of the Buddha's name in some ways may seem like they're opposed to each other in terms of the sense of purpose. If we're reciting the Buddha's name, it can be something of a devotional type of a practice. And when we practice in this way, we're just giving praise to the Amitabha Buddha, or it could be for a Bodhisattva, Namo Wanshin Pusa, or Namo Amitofo, praise to the Amitabha Buddha. But it has a deeper meaning to this. And in the same way that Chan practice, if we just simply practice Chan in terms of investigating mind, because I've said many times, Chan is not really a religion. It's looking into mind. But if we simply use this aspect of the practice, we miss the bridge, and we turned it into an intellectual or a scientific exercise of exploration. But the science cannot go that far to explain everything. And we need to have this faith in this mind. And when we do recitation, especially, let's say, for someone who is passing, and we're sincerely presenting this kind of a sharing with this person, in that moment, we jump outside of the samsaric practice, and we're utilizing mind itself, because we are sincerely practicing in a way to touch someone that science says to us, we cannot touch them, we cannot help them. But our practice, our heart says, we should try. We should try. Even if we think to ourselves that we're somewhat limited, it doesn't matter. Even if you're just beginning and you think you just have this little flame that's working, when we practice Nianfo, this recitation of the Buddha's name, especially in terms of transferring merit, it is something that is very essential to our practice, because it jumps in beyond devotional to the actual utilization of the mind. It serves as a bridge to bridge between samsara and samsaric events and mind itself. So it is helping whatever cause is at the attention of mind in that moment to help resolve something in samsara. But in its way in doing it, it is utilizing mind itself to do that. We never think about that. Sometimes what we do is we think about, oh, well, we're asking the Amitabha Buddha for assistance. But it's much, much more than that. It is the actual utilization of the mind. We are practicing in that moment. We're practicing mind. And this is very important to us because of the fact that this is utilizing the Buddha mind in a way in which I'll explain a little bit deeper. We're kind of starting off a little bit slow, and as the train's slowly pulling out of the station, so I don't lose any of you in the process. But this had a great impact on me this morning, because as I was thinking about it, I was thinking about, how does the student know? What does the student believe? The student believes, has great faith that she could help her sister, whether her sister is suffering here or whether she's in the process of going through a bardo. Nevertheless, she can lend some support to her. It isn't necessarily that it will have, like she can take somebody that's bound for hell and put them in heaven, but you never know. There may be a very slight difference between the two, but it doesn't matter, because whatever it is, it's the sincerity of utilizing the Amitabha mind, this infinite light, to do this, an infinite life as well of Amitabha, which is what Amitabha represents. It's kind of an idealized idea of a Western Pure Land where one can practice. Now, it's very easy, because in some ways they say, if you recite Amitabha Buddha's name 10 times sincerely, you're in. Well, if that's the case, I probably would have been in so many times, but I just simply pass that on to everybody. We transfer merit. How do we do this? What is transferring merit? Transferring merit is that we are looking into mind. We understand mind. We have awakened to mind in a way that we now are utilizing this mind for the benefit of other people. That's what Nianfo is it in its purest sense, is the utilization of mind here. So when you practice in this way, you don't have to be a big scholar to say, oh, I transcended this, or I did this, or I did that. It is just simple that we do this, just as simple as sweep, sweep, sweep. We use the mind in this way, the purity of the mind. And as we get into what I'm going to talk about a little bit later, you will see how it fits in this way. Master Sheng, he encouraged us to practice Nianfo. And to me, it's this bridge to the inconceivable, and it's the utilization of the inconceivable. When we're reciting the Buddha's name and applying it to samsara, we are using mind. And we don't have to know what mind is. That's irrelevant. What's relevant is the utilization of the mind in a positive way, in a pure way. And when we do that, it helps us and it defines us as a bodhisattva. And that's very, very important. So I think I covered all that. So we will now go to second. Actually, we're going to stay with Hui Ning and the Platform Sutra. And this particular part, I think, was very, very powerful. Hui Ning was a person that came to the practice in a very sudden way by listening to a passage of the Diamond Sutra. It caught his interest, And from there, then he went to Master Holmgren, which we had been studying for quite a while. So here is Hui Ning, one of his star students. The other one was Shen Shu, and pointing directly to mind in a very interesting way. When we talk about the Trikaya is this idea of the mind, and in terms of, let's say, samsaric terms, so that we could try to look at it and put it in the proper perspective. And it talks about that there's three bodies of the Buddha, the Dharmakaya, the Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. And you'll hear this all the time, but we have to stop and go, okay, I hear these terms, but what do they really mean? And it's an interesting thing because, and then thank you for laying that out, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya. And essentially, let me put it in terms of Sambhogakaya, which is this kind of a reward body, is represented by Amitabha Buddha. And Amitabha Buddha has this body. That's why they established this Western Pure Land, where everything is pure. What we're referring to when we say Pure Land is that the mind is pure. Wherever it's at, the mind is pure. So do we say there's a Western Pure Land? In what direction would we say? Is it the same direction, whether we're in China or we're in the United States or in Taiwan or wherever? Is it in this way or is it different? We need not know what direction that is in that way. Like we heard last week when they said, should the students be facing west? And they said, well, to the new students, and those that are not very adept, we tell them to point that way just to keep them oriented. But it isn't necessary. We don't have to bow in a particular way, such as the Muslims, and identify where Mecca is. The Pure Land is right here. The Pure Land is over there. It's over there. It's over there. It's in all directions, because mind is in all directions. And this idea is that when we think a good thought, we're in the Pure Land. When we think we're a bad thought, we're in hell. It just depends on how we do this and how we can sustain it as to where this mind is at. Everything is just simply this mind. But we get confused because we believe that the samsaric body is capable of salvation. But that would be foolish. That would be like you finding a perfect pomegranate, beautiful pomegranate, and you'd put it on the altar and you'd say, I want this pomegranate to be this way forever. Well, sooner or later, it's going to dry up, and its beauty will be replaced by putrefaction, because it will get rotten. But that's just the nature of things, because that in itself is just an appearance. It is the Dharmakaya that is the mind ground. It is what is sometimes referred to as the noumenon. If you were doing a fraction, it would be a line with 1 to the infinite below, and on top 1, or whatever number you want to put up on top. It is the denominator, not the numerator. This is something that's there that creates, gives value to whatever's the number above it is. Without it, there is nothing. That number that came up on the top line as a fraction owes its existence to the denominator on the bottom. This is the noumenon. This is the Dharmakaya. This represents the incredible unlimited knowledge and wisdom of the Buddha body. The Buddha body knows everything. Just like you know your hands, you know your feet, you know, it's no surprise to you. If you look at yourself, you'd be very surprised if you had grown an arm right over the night. You'd go, what's this? This is not my body. You know exactly how your body is. It is the Buddha body is in this way, except its appearance. They use the number of 10,000 to say that 10,000 dharmas appear at one time. That's just to give you a number that's relatively uncalculable for you in any specific moment to understand what is happening. And so we have that. Now then, how do we explain Shakyamuni Buddha? And Shakyamuni Buddha is an appearance body. This is the Nirmanakaya. So this body manifests by the power of the Buddha mind to appear within this world for assistance to those slumbering Buddhas caught up in this dream. And so our physical body is not an appearance body. Our physical body is just a dream. You could say the appearance body is in the same way, but it has a different purpose. It's specifically here for the purposes of delivering sentient beings. And it is understood that that body does not have an independent life in being or any kind of a way that we can look at it and say, oh, this being is real, not by self-proving, but by looking and seeing the nature. And this is what is important, is as we begin to see the nature of things, we see things in the correct way. Let me give you a little bit of definition of the Dharmakaya. And the term in Chinese, I may not get it right, and somebody who's well-versed in Chinese, is San Shen. So did I get it close or not? Yeah? Okay, San Shen is the Trikaya. And so this is in our teachings, it says that is a Mahayana teaching on both the nature of reality and the nature of Buddhahood. And this is something that as Chan practitioners, we concentrate quite a bit on, is the nature of things. We want to know the true nature of things. When we understand what the true nature of things are, then we understand it all is mine. We see how it works. We see how all this relates. In terms of this, in fact, this concept of the Trikaya doesn't mean there's three separate Buddhas or Buddha bodies. It is just an exploration of how the Buddha mind manifests, in particular with its relationship to samsara. So if we do not have samsara, the mind, it will be fundamentally empty. There will be nothing there as we perceive it to be in samsara. It would just be pure mind. But because of the obscurations in mind, it gives these appearances and purposes. But ultimately, all of that is represented by the Dharmakaya. As we mentioned, that Amitabha Buddha represents a good example of the reward body, and Shakyamuni Buddha represents the appearance body. Then when we see the Dharmakaya, it's represented by what they say is primordial Buddhas, and there's many different primordial Buddhas that are attributed. They're not necessarily different because they're all the Buddha, but primordial meaning that was there from where everything springs from. Well, probably the one that's mostly mentioned is Virachana. And so Virachana is a primordial Buddha, but even Samantabhadra at some points have been seen not as a bodhisattva, but as a primordial Buddha. So there's different ways to attribute it, but essentially saying that this was the source or the original Buddha from where things come from. It's not easy for us to do that, but because we have to look at this and we have to see, from where did the seeds come from? Not just in samsara, but where did these seeds of these Buddhas come from? We have to see from where they spring. This is the Dharmakaya. When did the Dharmakaya start? We don't know that. It's not possible for us to ever to know that. I don't, I don't know. Maybe that would be the first question I'd ask the Buddha. But the thing is that's silly, because a Buddha itself is just a depiction of the Buddha without being a Buddha. It's just mind itself. So there's nothing that it can reduce down to. It is just that. And so that's the Dharmakaya, the noumenon, where everything springs from. And including, we could say, the notion of Virachana. Virachana is Virachana when there is no notion of Virachana. Otherwise, it would be referred to as a primordial Buddha, tracing it back. So it says the Dharmakaya is the ultimate reality, the pure being itself, the Buddha nature. Emptiness is usually associated with Virachana. The Sambhogakaya, the enjoyment or bliss body, the divine Buddhas of the Buddha realms, it is usually associated with Amitabha. And the Nirmanakaya is a transformation or appearance body, physical appearance in the world. It is usually associated with Gautama or Sujamonifo Shakyamuni Buddha. And it's kind of interesting because we look at this, and this is all coming pretty far back in time. Do these bodies remind you of any other religion? Because there was a religion that pretty much kind of lifted this, but where we say the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. And so the Father being the reward body, the Son that takes the beating, the appearance body, and the Holy Ghost, which is everything there. Incidentally, the Holy Ghost was kind of an afterthought in Christianity, where they had to figure out what was going on, and so it was kind of patched into things. And you will see very few references in the Bible of the Holy Ghost, but it was all kind of trying to balance this all out. So it's kind of an interesting thing. But the Buddhists were looking at this, and again, these three bodies of the Buddha are not three separate bodies. It is just our attempt to explain the inconceivable within the realm of samsara, knowing that we're fudging by explaining it, because it's not really something that's divided. It is just the nature of the Buddha mind itself that has these, we could call potentialities or nature that's there. And this is the part that we really need to explore. If we truly want to investigate mind, we have to be able to do that and separate in our examination the inquisitive nature of the mind from the corporal body, from our body, and say that it is mind investigating mind, just like when I talked about meditating, and it's mind meditating in mind. And in this way, there is this total absorption of the self. It's absorbed into all of that, but all three of these Buddha bodies are present in every moment, every single moment. They're present. You hear me talk about all the time body, speech, and mind. And in this one, that is not other than the Trikaya. It's not other than the Buddha mind. I always emphasize that, always telling you to do this. If we understand that, then when we are doing the recitation, transferring merit, we're utilizing the Buddha mind, not our mind. Our mind couldn't save a flea from being scratched off a dog. But this mind that we have can transform everything. It's the transformation there that Shakyamuni Buddha appearing in this world gives us evidence that it can be this way. And in this way, we see that is the appearance body, the reward body. We make the connection with Amitabha Buddha for assistance. And we know this works because it's all part of the Dharmakaya. As we begin to do this, it is like a diamond that we keep changing and turning to see the inside the diamond through different facets. And each facet reflects the other facets on the other side of the diamond. Clearly sparkling, clearly pure. And when we see things in this way, then the inconceivable doesn't appear to be that far off. You can touch it. You can touch each other. So one of my dear friends, Wei Shan, is going to China, and I was talking to Su Tan tonight and saying that he may be leaving to China, but he still is not beyond my touch from if I extend my arm. And I said, even you can touch him because you too have this Buddha nature. This is what's very, very important, is that there's this Buddha nature that we have. And that's how we can touch each other. And this is so amazing. It's a wondrous aspect of our practice to be able to practice in this way, where we can communicate and reach out. Why? Because we all have this Buddha mind. Now, I spent a half an hour for the preface to Hui Ning, so maybe I better get to him. Hold on a second. There was so much more I wanted to talk to you about, but as usual, the time prohibits me from going over all of this stuff. But it's important because when I start talking about this, you need to understand what we're talking about. Otherwise, you just go, oh, that sounds good. That sounds good. What does it mean? I don't know. It just sounded good. Okay, so we continue with the Platform Sutra. And it says, this material body is an inn, INN, like not even a hotel. I mean, it's like a Motel 3, and not fit for refuge. So you can imagine it's like the dirtiest of all the places, that you pass by and you go, you want to stay there? Heck no, it's only $5 a night. No, it can't be that good for $5 a night. So it's not fit for you to stay at. But the three bodies of the Buddha are your ever-present Buddha nature. So we talked about that, Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya. And this inn that we stay in is a burning building. Everyone has them. Because people are deluded, they don't see them. They don't see it. But as I look out on all of you that are here and listening, I see Buddhas. How can you not see Buddhas? You all have this Buddha nature. This is the transformation. It doesn't work just one way. It works two ways. The transformation of of the Buddha to come to this world, but the transformation of our own Buddha mind to see the Buddha nature in all sentient beings is wondrous. It's incredible. They look for the three-bodied Tathagata outside themselves and don't see the three-bodied Buddha in their own material body. Good friends, listen to this good friend of yours. I'm a friend of yours, right? Shake hands. Pinky promise. Whatever. I'm your friend. Listen. And I will tell you, good friends, how to see within your material body the three-bodied Buddha present in your own Dharma nature. So here he's telling you, he's going to show you how to see your Dharma nature. It's actually brilliant. It's so simple the way Huineng explains this. The three-bodied Buddha that arises from this nature is yours. So we were talking about the reward body, the appearance body, the transformation body, and all of them are yours. If not, how the heck did you get here? You took a wrong turn at Albuquerque, and now you're here. You could have been a Buddha already, but you chose to take refuge in this body instead of the Buddha. That's what it means, right? I take refuge in the Buddha, in Dharma and Sangha. You're taking refuge. You say, I choose not to hold on to this body. It doesn't mean that you stop eating or stop breathing or whatever. It just means that you're clear about what is there, what is present, what is valuable, what is the gold, and what is the dross that surrounds the gold. It's a dross or dross, I'm not sure. What do we mean by the Dharma body, the Dharmakaya, Buddha? Good friends, everyone's nature is fundamentally pure, and 10,000 dharmas are present in this nature. So in this very nature that you have, as I mentioned to you, 10,000 dharmas are present. We don't know that because, it's hard for us to think, should I take the jelly donut or should I take the lemon-filled donut? I can't make up my mind. And that's all you can think of, just like ones and zeros, binary. You can't constantly switching and switching and switching. Imagine that you have this mind that has 10,000 dharmas present, 10,000 things. How much more effective you would be in that moment to be able to literally process information that quickly. But we can't do that. It's hard enough for us to make a choice. And we always choose the wrong one. I should have had the jelly. Okay. Good friends. Okay. Now, if we think about doing something bad, we commit bad deeds. That's pretty simple, right? And if we think about doing something good, we perform good deeds. So this is a connection between mind and body. Good speech, bad speech, good deeds. It is this mind. Thus, we know all dharmas are present in our nature. All dharmas are present in our nature because it's all connected. This is what Shakyamuni Buddha presented, that the laws of dependent origination, all of those dharmas are present because they are part of the Dharmakaya. They're part of the body of the Buddha. If they're part of the body of the Buddha, they're present in us. Is this very deep and profound? No, it's actually very simple. We make it deep and profound, but it's so simple. It's like Well, I should have thought of that. So you're careful via body, speech, and mind as to what you do. If we think of doing something bad, we commit bad deeds. And I'm sorry, let me go back. But our nature itself remains pure. The sun and the moon are always shining. It is only due to cloud cover that there is a light above, but darkness below. We can't see the moon or the stars. But it's very, very interesting here in terms of how we look at that, because the perspective is a bit changed. When there's a light above and there's clouds, we cannot see into the samsara. But the light is always there. The sun is always there. When we turn the mind's eye inward, the sun is always present. The light is always present. We do not see the clouds as obstructions or obscurations. We see them as if they belong to mind. Whether it's a good deed or a bad deed, it was created in mind. We see things exactly as they are. And that's very important. When we do that, we look at it and say, oh, I see. If I smile at you, you smile at me. But if I scowl at you, you'll scowl at me. And it goes on from there. It's so simple. It's not that difficult for us, but we hide all of this and say, oh, this is too profound. No, it's not too profound. It is body, speech, and mind. The basics that we teach is the very Buddha mind. Okay, so we continue. So we can't see the moon or star. Then suddenly the wind of wisdom comes along and blows the clouds and drives the fog away. And a panorama of 10,000 images appears all at once. We already discussed this as how this happens. It appears instantaneously. The mind can conceive of that. We cannot. That's inconceivable to us to even begin to think of how to do that. But in mind, it can. And this term 10,000 dharmas, you could multiply that by infinity and it would still hold true. What do we mean by the myriad-fold transformation body, the Nirmanakaya? So what do we mean by that? The myriad meaning uncountable transformations. Aren't you like a transformation body too? If the Buddha was using this body and his was a transformation, you have a transformation body too. Again, you kind of messed up, but here you are. And now you're trying to rectify the mistake. The only thing is that the body itself cannot be salvaged. So our perspective of salvation is not with an individual life and being. The salvation is recognizing that each and every one of you possess the Buddha mind, and it is the Buddha nature that is making you appear here. And it's just simply the wrong choices in mind. It's still mine, but we get confused about that. Okay. If we didn't think, our nature would be utterly empty. So interesting. If we didn't think, our nature will be utterly empty. Empty of what? Empty of things. There's no things there. In the Buddha mind, even whatever you see here, you see me, this is an illusion, an appearance. It's a transformation body, nevertheless pointing to the true nature of mind, which is that very, what you perceive to be a person that's communicating with you is the Buddha mind, mind to mind to your Buddha mind. that's worth salvaging. When we think, we transform ourselves. When we think, we transform ourselves. Now, some of you may be thinking, this is just bad. Don't think, and I have to go to your town and you're there and they're going, what happened to him? He's not thinking because you told him don't think. And so, no, it's not in that way. It is when we use this mind, we transform ourselves. We call it ourself, we call it our thinking, but in this way, it is not connected with the body, except for the causes and conditions there of mind itself. But we can transform it in a way in which it can be something that is negative, or it could be something positive, like Nam Amitofu, Nam Amitofu, Nam Amitofu. May this person, not suffer. May this person be reborn in a better place. And that's thinking too. And isn't that transforming? It's transforming for us to be bodhisattvas. Not bad, right? We just don't see this right. And as a result of it, we can't figure this out because it's right before our very nose and we don't see it. That is just this mind. We already have it. It's like that obnoxious commercial for cellular phones going, you're in, you're in, you're in, you're in, And I can say all of the people that I see, you're all in. But when you practice, you transform. You don't just transform like your body. Your body does not become a superhuman body that is not going to die. It becomes superhuman in the sense of what it can accomplish here in samsara. How many people can be awakened by the effort? How we can make things positive here, create a pure land here. Not in the Western Pure Land, but here, right now. What is in your mind? If positive is in your mind, positive things will happen. That's what Wei Ning is talking about. If negative is there, then as he says, if we think evil thoughts, we turn into the denizens of hell. Cause and condition never fail. If we think good thoughts, we turn into deities of heaven. Malice turns us into beast. So if we have an idea we want to get even with somebody, it turns us into beast. So pitiable that we have to think in this way. It's very, very sad. We want to get even. Compassion turns us into bodhisattvas. And wisdom transports us to the higher realms, and ignorance sends us to the lower depths. Our nature is constantly transforming itself. Our nature is constantly transforming itself. What do you think? What do you want out of all of this? What needs to be there? This is very, very important. What needs to be in the picture? Does our ego need to be there? Our self, our perceived suffering need to be there? Or can it transcend that? It can. You pick in this moment from your 3 Buddha bodies. You now know how you got here. You now know why you appear in the way you appear. It's a transformative body. If you go and use this body very badly, taking from people and cheating them and stealing things, you may end up as a pig in the next lifetime, having to pay back everything that you stole. everything that you unjustifiably took from people. And so we don't understand that, but that's the way the mind works in its pure form. It seeks to equalize everything in that way. We don't understand that. The Christians used it in a way where God judges you, and kind of like Willy Wonka, they put you on the scale, and if you're a bad egg, boom, you're gone. And so not only that, but you're gone for eternity. So the thing is that we look at it and we see everything is naturally appearing in accordance with this, but we're stuck in this hamster wheel, just going and going and going and going. We never seem to realize that in that wheel like that, if we just stepped out, it would stop spinning. But again, like Shifu told me, it only stops spinning for you. So this is why we need to use the compassion. But deluded people are unaware of this. They're unaware that our nature is constantly transforming itself. They're unaware that once we think of goodness, wisdom arises. One lamp can dispel 1,000 years of darkness, and one thought can end 10,000 years of ignorance. Don't think about what is past, but keep them thinking, put the mind on what is next, rather than trying to do that. Sometimes people think so much of all the transgressions that have happened to them from this person and that person and this person. That belongs to them. It doesn't belong to you. So you just leave it alone. And I remember talking to this one very elderly Chinese lady, and her kids were not very filial to her. Some of them treated her poorly. And I asked her, does that bother you that your children treat you poorly? Some of your children treat you poorly. She said, no. She said, because if all I do is think about how they treat me so poorly, I'd never be able to sleep at night. I'd never be able to take a rest. No, I'm content in my life. But if I make that my own, then I can never have any rest in my life. It's very, very hard for us to think that way because we want to keep score. If somebody hurts us, we want to hurt them back. If somebody betrays our trust, we want to betray their trust. This is very pitiable because all it does is just keeps us in that hamster wheel spinning around and spinning around. We don't need to do that. We just have to let go. Let go moment to moment to moment. We do that. We use body, speech, and mind. And it says, when your next thought is always good, when your next thought is always good, this is what is called the realization body, the Sambhogaya. So your thoughts are good. That's a reward. If somebody does something to harm you, you let that go. If that doesn't affect you, it's like water off a duck's back. Then you are clear. This is the reward body. Your mind is at rest, at peace. One bad thought results in the destruction of 10,000 years of good ones. But one good thought results in the annihilation of 1,000 years of bad thoughts. So when you practice in this way. You keep trying to keep the good thoughts in mind. This is very important. Okay. And then in the face of impermanence, if your next thought is good, we call the realization body. The very thoughts that come from the Dharma body are your transformation body. So the very thoughts that come from the Dharma body is your transformation body. The thoughts that are here, the thoughts that you use in samsara, are from your transformation body. It's related to your interaction with other Buddhas in this dream. But it all comes from the Dharmakaya. We don't understand that. So we are attached to our body and think that it is our body that is practicing, thinking it is our body, our name that leads us to salvation. But it isn't in this way. I've said many times that the masters say that this is like trying to grasp onto seaweed or sea foam in the ocean to try to keep you buoyant. It won't work. The thoughts, okay. And when every thought is good, this is your realization body. So what, like he mentioned before, if every thought is good, this is your realization body. It is reward. You're not suffering. You're not causing others to suffer. Everything that you think is in this way. But we don't understand that. We don't understand when we say don't think. When we say don't think, it is don't think like a samsaric human being. Use the Buddha nature to perceive things. This perception is what we need to practice to turn the mind's eye inward. That is the sun looking down at the earth covered by clouds. When you yourself become aware of this, when you yourself cultivate this, this is called taking refuge. So when you become aware of how the mind works, that it is this Trikaya, this three-body Buddha. And when you understand that, you go, oh, all right, now I see how mind works. And so, and when you cultivate it, you go, if I only think good thoughts, you're a practitioner. It works. Now you're taking refuge in the Buddha because you understand how that works. If you take refuge in the Buddha, if you choose the Buddha moment to moment over your so-called ego, you're bound to have this realization at some point in time. Your material body is made of flesh and bones. Your material body is just but an inn, not fit for taking refuge. Just become aware of your three bodies, and you will understand what is truly important. So this was the message of Master Huineng. It's a very powerful message. What I like about Huineng is that he goes right to the point. And again, he stresses what is called subitism, this sudden enlightenment. And sudden enlightenment just simply is seeing things as they are very clearly. We don't have to go and try to do something else or invent anything or create anything. He takes your eye and pulls it out and turns it around and go, look at yourself, look at this, look at the situation around you. And you see, this is the perception of the mind, and perceiving by the mind, you can't go wrong. But it's very, very simple. You think good thoughts, that's good. You think bad thoughts, that's where you run into problems. So why do we keep choosing the wrong thoughts and expecting a different outcome in everything we do, whether it's sitting in meditation and watching movies go by and thinking that just simply that we're there we're building up some kind of merit. You are to some extent, because you can't do bad body karma while you're sitting there on the cushion and not immobilized. But there's so much more to it than just that, than just practicing your legs. And, I see many people in a Chan hall that practice their legs, and yet it's not reflected in what they do when they get off the cushion. And the thing is that we see things just as they are, very, very clearly. I think there was one other thing I wanted to see if I can find it. A couple of little small things while I still have some time. And this isn't in regards to the Trikaya. And this is from one of my favorite masters, Ling Chi, which I quote him quite a bit. And he has, I'm going to butcher this name, I'm sorry, it's in Chinese. Zhenzo Ling Chi Hui Sao Changxi Yu Lu. Anybody in Chinese can figure out enough to say it in Chinese? No? Is it that bad? Zhenzo Ling Chi. See if I can do this. I don't know if it gets close enough here. Because those of you who speak Chinese or read Chinese might be able to see that. I don't know if you can read those words or not. No? If anybody sees it, oh well. In any case, Ling Chi, this is from his writings, and he says, do you wish to be not different from the Buddhas and the patriarchs? Then just do not look for anything outside. The pure light of your own heart at this instant is the Dharmakaya Buddha in your own house. The non-differentiating light of your heart at this instant is the Sambhogakaya Buddha in your own house. The non-differentiating light of your heart at this instant, at this instant is Nirmanakaya Buddha in your own house. We talk about self-nature, right? And so it is this way. The non-discriminating, this trinity of the Buddha body is not other than here before your eyes, listening to my expounding the Dharma. And then there was one last part, and this was actually coming from the Tibetan tradition, but it is actually very good in terms of this, talking about these three Vajras. And it says, Dharma Dhatu is adorned, and Dharma Dhatu is just all phenomena, the phenomenal world, is adorned with the Dharmakaya, which is endowed with Dharma Dhatu wisdom, meaning how everything appears. This brief but very profound statement, because Dharma Dhatu also refers to Sugata Garbha, or Buddha nature. Buddha nature is all encompassing. This Buddha nature is present just as the shining sun is present in the sky. It is indivisible from the three Vajras. Anybody know what the three Vajras are? No, Senta? Okay, the three Vajras, and you'll go, oh, the three Vajras. The Buddha's body, speech, and mind, the three Vajras. I always talk about body, speech, and mind, right? You think I'm talking about your body, speech, and mind. I'm talking about the Buddha body, speech, and mind of an awakened state, which do not perish or change. So it is this mind that we come in harmony with and in accord to, is these three Vajra. So always think body, speech, and mind in whatever you do. And then a little bit more expounding from another person, still in Tibetan tradition, which is Chan here at this part. The trinity of the body, speech, and mind are known as the three gates, the three receptacles or three vajras, and correspond to the religious concept of the righteous thought, word, and deed. I think it goes a little bit beyond that, because that only buys you a ticket to heaven. It doesn't. It's not pointing to the nature that this very mind is Buddha, but that this is a Western philosopher or scholar, so that they try to equate it with Christian thought. Three vajras also correspond to the three kayas, which the aspect of the body located at the crown, Nirmanakaya, the aspect of speech through Sambhokaya, and the aspect of the heart, Dhammakaya. So all of these things, again, they're connected. So when we talk about the Vajra, the three gates, those gates are also a reflection of the Buddha mind. And this way, if you can see things and you start looking at it in this way, you'll see that it makes sense in terms of how we practice. So I only went over a little bit today, so I will take your questions. Thank you for listening. No questions again today. Harry. See, he's a brave one. So unmute Harry.
Yeah, I don't know how brave I am. I just wanted to mention, yesterday I was talking about Boshan and the exhortation for those who cannot give rise to the great doubt. And the way that he talks about great doubt, the doubt sensation itself, it's common to all of our practices, whether it's Watto or silent illumination or counting the breath. And it occurred to me that is when you talk about turning the eye around, the mind's eye around, looking inward, the elbow grease that does that is this doubt sensation. It's the thing that allows you to not cling to the things that arise in the mind, because you're always in this sense of looking beyond what's normally dazzling your eyes. I just wanted to make that comment.
Yeah, I'd like to thank you for that comment, because it is in this way, and this idea of the doubt. A lot of times people, when they do the Huato, for instance, they think because of the descriptions of this big giant ball of doubt that encompasses them, that they have to feel some kind of a physical sensation about that. I've had it where that's been present, but I've had it using the Huato where it was not present, and it was just simply this turning the mind's eye inward and looking. And so this idea of doubt is, you're right, is what leads us to this investigation. We have to have a sincerity, or what they call faith in mind, to utilize the methods to do that. If we do not have faith in mind, then that is the prerequisite of being able to do this, to say, not in consciousness, but in mind, and looking and saying, let's reorient everything and do that. And there is this doubt that this world is real. And as you begin to look at it and you begin to see it, and you start pulling away from it, then you begin to see, it's like flatlanders in the medieval time, they would look at things and then say, oh, the earth is flat, but if they ever got into a hot air balloon and went up 10,000 feet, then they would see the curvature of the earth. But and if somebody did that and came back, they could tell them about it, but not until the person sees that. But they have to have faith that that could happen. And that's kind of the same thing, this kind of a stretching the credibility of, oh no, everything's flat, versus no, there's a curvature to the earth, and we don't have the faith in the one that's saying that, enough faith to be able to try to make sense of all of that. And that's the thing, is that doubt that you have, that is the interest in investigating, which is, it has to be there. It has to be there so that we can contemplate. Go ahead. Oh, unmute him again.
So, Gilbert, so when you talked about the faith, the great faith, there's this phrase that Sheng uses, which is, if you have great faith, you have great doubt, and if you have great doubt, you have great enlightenment. So, I mean, he really connects faith and doubt, like, in lockstep, and I think that's an important point.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it is in this way, we have faith, faith in mind, faith in the method, faith in the teacher, faith in yourself. But the first one is faith in mind. And when we have this great faith, that really drives our practice. So, I mean, that's been said throughout all of the Chan masters, but it's important. So thank you very much for commenting on that. Anybody else have a question or comment? Mark.
Thank you for the lecture this evening. You were talking about good thought being a reward. But a good versus a thought, bad thought seems like from a reference from samsara. And I somehow, correlate that to any choice is really a bad choice, because a choice would be from the context of the ego, right? And so a choice in my perspective is a form of clinging. So I'm trying to gain some sense of clarity, especially around the good versus a bad thought, because again, a good versus a bad thought seems like, well, that's just another perspective from samsara. You're still clinging to an ego. Am I missing something there? Is there something broader in the context of that point that you were emphasizing? Or?
Sure.
Thank you.
The first thing I would say is that your mind is very clever. And
well, I prefer not to have that.
but it holds up these parts for scrutiny. But the only thing is, it's serving as judge and jury, and falling on this side of samsara and saying, well, what he says, good and bad, that doesn't make sense because it's samsara. But if you remember what Huineng said, that is, if you do good, you can end up in better realms, in samsara. So in this good and bad, what you're missing is there's an aspect of transformation that takes one out of that. So we set the environment for the proper practice and the transformation that releases us from this body. But we cannot do that if we're stuck with our feet stuck in a mire in samsara. When we begin to practice in the correct way and good, and we don't think of evil things, then we set into motion an interest in that, and also, as he had mentioned, an interest in the bodhisattva practice. And so it is in this way that we do this. So you got part of the way, but then your ego told you turn back, and you go, okay, I'll turn back. But that's where you've got to look at it and then reread this and explore it, so that you can see what it really is pointing to. It's pointing to mind, but what it's trying to do is let you know, Mark, that this body is part of the Dharmakaya. It's an appearance there, whether it's a good thought or a bad thought. But the difference is that if one can continually have good thoughts, and these thoughts are not necessarily thinking, donuts are good, so I'll just keep thinking about donuts and do it that way, no, that's not how you do it. It is these non-sticky thoughts and these thoughts of an interest in the salvation of others and in their ignorance that transforms that once one has that, once develops a faith, then they can transform that. So you got to be careful with your mind. And I'm not insulting you. I'm just trying to show you how clever the mind can be, because it can change this around. It did not go unnoticed to me as I was reading that some people could misinterpret that. And in the first reading that I looked at, I go, this could be problematic, because people will look at this and see. That's why I kind of slowed it down so that we don't gloss over that and say, oh, there's a duality there. There's not a duality.
Is it the development of the compassion is the reference, or another way to think about it?
Well, yeah, it is in seeing what the practice is and seeing how one becomes entangled in all of this stuff. My good friend Michael's on deck, and talking about quantum entanglement, and we're talking about Dharma entanglement. The more that you have bad thoughts, the more entangled you become with here. It is not a good thought saying, I am thinking a good thought. It is, I am not thinking on an attaching thought, rather than saying, good thoughts, donuts, so I'll just keep my mind on donuts, and I'll think about donuts all the time. You could become a donut master, and one day you can go through the hole. So, but in any case, hopefully you won't be in that way.
Thank you.
Okay, no problem. Michael, go ahead.
Yeah, so to this point, I also wanted to comment that this right thought was really interesting today, because I tended to read whenever, sometimes the Eightfold Path has the right thought, and being trained by your lectures, whenever I came across this term, I cringed, because I preferred to replace it by right aspiration, right intention, something which goes deeper, because the thought itself was, I understood as problematic. But today's lecture was interesting because it connected it to the thought coming out of the Dharmakaya, coming out of right view, and therefore inducing a transformation. So this would, in this sense, it's a wholesome thought. Yeah. So it was really interesting.
Exactly. Keep going.
Yeah, so it reconciled. So whenever now I will see the right thought, I will, in the as a translation of the Eightfold Path, I will be at peace now after today's lecture.
Well, I thought that, and again, I thank the person that I talked to this morning, because they gave me the epiphany to be able to see this in a way that made it clear in terms of what to me, what was happening with this transferring the merit by reciting the Buddha's name for her sister. And I will keep your sister, and I have been keeping your sister in my blessings as well. But to say, oh, how does this all work? And then I started realizing, because the way she was doing it was correct. And she was practicing in the right way. And a lot of people, they practice, but it's simply devotional. But there is this aspect of that recitation of the Buddha name that is incredibly profound and deep if we use it in the right way. And again, that is accessing mind in samsara. And so it's not just that we're asking some cardboard Buddha figure to help us, or a statue of the Buddha. We're accessing mind itself to do this, and it's incredibly profound. And if you're sincere with it, the blessings that come out of it are amazing. I mean, the more I give blessings, the more I perfect this aspect of the practice. And it's truly an important aspect of the practice to do this. And it's powerful. I mean, people, they really feel it, and sometimes it can change. Of course, it's all within reason in terms of people's causes and conditions, but sometimes you can really make some incredible impact on people, and those who are dying or have died, you know, and help them change the course. It can't hurt. So, I mean, but if you really can apply it in the right way, it's very good. So, yeah, so kind of work on that part. You know, I think that kind of woke up something in you, you know, to move a little bit away from the scientific aspect and looking at it, you know, and I think that's going to supercharge your practice. So good. Tori, go ahead.
I just want to comment on Mark's question. So I have given some thoughts recently, and I come to a realization, and that the question that, okay, well, good and bad, that's the duality. So why would I go with either one of them? And also, okay, sentient beings, that they're ultimately they're not real. I'm not real. They're not real. So why deliver them, right? But I come to that conclusion that when we not think about our own, right, and always think about the good for other people, and to practice the Bodhisattva's path, ultimately that's the biggest challenge to ego, and that ego has to step aside with this kind of practice. So that's why I believe that this is the ultimate path. This is the path to attain Buddhahood. I truly believe in this path, because whenever I think about, I'm going to throw away my own needs and wants and just focus on other people, ego is like, no. So this is the path. That's what I believe. Thank you.
Yeah, you can still live your life. You can still have a donut occasionally. It's all right. Gilbert authorizes you one donut a week. Can't hurt you that bad. Okay. If you start thinking about 2 donuts, then stop completely. But in any case, I had my quota today. So I'm okay, but that's it for the week, I guess, for me. But in any case, yeah, it is in this way when you begin to see this, and you're one of those that has a very good condition to practice. So you listen to me, and you develop this faith that Harry was talking about, and that's important. It's a very powerful faith. So it's not just a faith in what I say, but a faith that one investigates. And we investigate, just like Michael was talking about, we investigate in the right places. And that's what you're doing. So just keep going the way you're doing, because that's very, very important. You have this ability to penetrate right away. I mean, people with let's say your time into it, they don't talk like you. They don't ask questions like you. So it's good. I mean, you. So I really encourage you quite a bit, you know. And so you keep practicing in this way. You're on the right path. Okay. Wrong Chen. There you go.
Gilbert, I could not follow when you say our nature is constantly transforming itself. In what sense? I mean, self-nature, Buddha nature, I mean.
It is just in this way. I have to laugh because to me, I found it very interesting. I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because it's kind of a joyous laugh of understanding that part, that we're constantly transforming, because that's what the Dharmakaya does. There is no magic to this physical body. This physical body transforms in accordance with causes and conditions. It's set into motion by causes and conditions. You come into this world, and appear in accordance with causes and conditions. Do not think even one wrinkle on your face, if you have any, would be, and if you don't, I can lend you some. But don't think that those do not appear without some reason. And that reason, all of that stuff is occurring within mind. All of this is in the Dharmakaya. That's why I'm stressing today so much about the Dharmakaya and what they were doing, because it's a shocker. When you read that, then it was intended in that way by Ning to go, well, wait a sec, good and bad, what is he talking about? And then that's why he qualifies it with the bodhisattvas, because good and bad still is in samsara, just like Mark was pointing out. But there's a deeper good way of doing that from the Dharmakaya and from the Trikaya of body, speech, and mind that transcends the idea of the self. But that which is appearing here is constantly being transformed. It's impermanent. You know, if it wasn't, then you would be scary right now, because you would be a grown voice talking out of a little baby. But it isn't in that way. You progress, but in accordance with causes and conditions. All of this stuff is there, but we think that this is a real world with real rules and all of these things. But it is why I started with the idea of using recitation, because it steps out of this world, looking back in the world, transforming the world. We have that capacity to transform this world, to create a Pure Land here. And so we don't understand that. So we say, well, how does this happen? You're almost there, but again, you're like Mark in that way where your ego wants to pull you back and say, no, you need me. I'm the one that's traversing through all of this, but you don't see that all of this is from causes and conditions. And all these appearances, including your doubts, come only from the Buddha mind, no other place, in accordance with what was put in there. But there's no individual self or life and being or ego that can get out of samsara, because it's a dream. But that mind that's dreaming it, that is what we're pointing to. That is what Ning is talking about, is the Trikaya. This very mind right now that you have. That is such a wonderful epiphany for salvation, not of your body. Rongchen will go by, but that mind that you have has never been born. It will never die. It is just in this way. This is how you look at things. Go ahead.
Let's say you always said the original mind, the Buddha nature, is unmoved, unchanged. So to me, I feel like it's like a ball, but the glow that's constantly growing, the light, the shining light, but inside it doesn't change. The nature itself should not change, but the upside looks like a lot of change.
Yeah, because if tonight you sleep and you have a dream, when you wake up, let's say in the dream you went to a casino and you won $20,000. When you wake up, can you cash in your chips?
That's definitely not.
No, because it's a dream. There's no movement there. It's all part of mind. It's an appearance within mind that's fundamentally empty. There's nothing there. And that's where the confusion is because you see my hand moving, you see movement, and you see it coming back. But in fact, my hand never moved because there was no hand to move. It's just appearing in a dream. And even if I call it back and move it again, it's a different hand, not the same one that came before. We see things as they are and look into it. What I was pointing to, Rongchen, is this, and it's very good. I'm very happy that you have these questions because it's not easy. So these kind of questions point to our discomfort of our doubts, not the good doubts, but our doubts that mind is, as the ancients say. It's not my words that I'm saying. That's why I always use the minds of masters from before, so that you can see this is what they're saying. And it is, whatever I present is something that is clearly there. You just have to begin to break down that idea of the sense of self and the sense that there is actually movement in mind, and then it will work for you. Okay. Play with it this week, and then if you still have questions, please ask again next week. Okay. And so I don't know whether we can get a copy of whatever I read today and access it and put it in Mighty Networks so you can take a look at it. But I think it's, huh?
I'll do that, Gilbert.
All right, thank you, because it would be very, very helpful. I can actually give you mine that has all of the writing on it. And so that will be helpful too, because it's all, got about 4 different kinds of ink on it. Okay, so that's good. All right, so Mark, you're back again. And you'll keep coming back.
I hope not.
Hope not too. Go ahead.
So as I listen to, the questions and the responses, it seems like the only choice is to let go. Let go of the dream, because any choice in the dream is a bad choice.
Well, yes and no. I mean, we do our work. Bodhisattvas do our work here. So we make choices. Those choices are choices from mind, like Hui Ning was saying. So we don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, but we see that we cannot purchase or have any purchase in this life. This corporal body is not real, but that which is experiencing it is real. And therein lies the interest in removing the suffering, even though that suffering does not belong to the individual sentient being. There's a confusion there, but that suffering is like a thorn in the foot of the Buddha, that there's an interest in removing that thorn, even though that thorn is an imaginary thorn.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? So, okay. Oh, Harry's coming back. All right, Harry.
Trying to unmute. Oh, hi. I just want to make one point. It's actually to what Mark had mentioned earlier. So John Donne, the Tibetan scholar, has a really great way of distinguishing some of the things that he was asking about, which is a differentiation between the early teachings and the Mahayana. So John Donne says that ordinary sentient beings are continually trying to grab things out of desire and push things away out of ill will. And bodhisattvas are doing exactly the same thing, but the difference is they're no longer doing it out of self, right? They're because they're looking after sentient beings. So sometimes sentient beings need things, and sometimes sentient beings don't need things. But the true bodhisattva has transcended doing that from out of their own interests.
Yeah, I think that's way, and I think that's what makes the blessings powerful, because one's accessing outside of samsara, and which is to get back to Rongchen, is accessing the transformative powers of the mind in an intentional way. Whereas when we are in the cycle of samsara, we transform everything via ignorance. We don't know that. we don't know that this is a shadow puppet show, but we are creating via ignorance that, but it's not us that is doing that. It's just mind that has lost that ability to recognize its own identity. So it's interesting. So this is why I believe that the Mahayana practice that was done in a way from Chan school and from the Tibetan school are extremely helpful, because they do emphasize this bodhisattva practice, which I think expedites the, let's say, not enlightenment, because the bodhisattva is no longer interested in the enlightenment, but the ultimate conversion to a pure land of this world. So it's just a different way of looking at it. But bodhisattvas are here doing the work, knowing that, but they also have this weapon, which is that they understand there's a transformative nature there that they can access. Now, they don't transform it for their own good, like you were saying, Harry, because if you do that, you mess everything up. Then now you're back to burning up your good karma. It can last for a while, but then you'll burn it out. But if you are constantly there thinking of others and how you can devote your life to helping others, then it works. It works very, very powerful. But if you start thinking, oh, I'm powerful, then you mess everything up, like the Sheng Sutra says. But if you just simply practice with no idea, just like what Hui Ning said, don't look to the past, then you just keep looking forward, in terms of this next decision, body, speech, and mind, and it will work. I really hope that this helped you. If there's confusion, it's okay. It's really okay, because this confusion will be something that will help you a lot to kind of look at things and go, well, how is this, but then go to the sutras, go to other treatises, read and see if what I'm saying and what Hui Ning is saying isn't the norm, isn't what they're saying. They're all saying this. Okay. Today was just, I was happy because I found a way to explain something very profound in a simple way. And that gave me great joy, and so to the one student who lost her sister, your sister passing has helped a lot of people additionally, and certainly that is also merit. So I thank you again for communicating with me this morning. And again, I still pass my condolences for the passing of your sister. So thank you very much for listening today. Amitofo.